Okay, everyone. Well, welcome. Good morning. My name's Andrew Knight from Outdoors Victoria. We've got some wonderful support staff from Outdoors Victoria here today as well. So Andrea, Renee, Robin, and also Richelle as well, who'll be presenting later on as well. And it's great to see so many of you logged on for our first outdoor series of events, tying with October being Mental Health Month. Mental health and wellbeing, of course, is a topic on everyone's lips at the moment. That's why this webinar will explore the mental health benefits working and playing in the outdoors, as well as solutions to create better outcomes for all Victorians. What we might do is, let's see, I'll just see if we can get that lovely slide pack up. Here we go, beautiful. Welcome to those who've just joined us. We're just about to get going. So I'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land, which we meet today digitally, including the land, water and sky used for outdoor recreation. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and welcome everyone for joining us today. Before we start, we wanted to give you a brief of who Outdoors Victoria is, if you haven't caught up with us before, and what we get up to. Outdoors Victoria represents the outdoors sectors of Victoria. We collaborate with people and organisations to advocate for a sustainable and respectful nature-based industry, and we encourage more Victorians to be active outdoors. Through our work and our passion for the outdoors, we recognise the effect on mental health that long-term social isolation can have on people, which brings us to the focus of today's digital series. At the National Outdoor Education Conference precursor event last month, the impacts of COVID-19 and lockdowns on young children, teenagers and adults were high on the agenda. The stress of living in isolation can negatively affect young people's cognitive, social and emotional development. Attendees discussed their concern about how the education sector might recover and how outdoor play and outdoor learning has in some cases completely disappeared from the curriculum. 90% of school-aged children around the world have been affected by school closures in the last 18 months. Of course, it's not just young people feeling the effects. With stage 4 lockdowns, the ability for people to rejuvenate their mental health by exploring the outdoors was severely limited. So where does that leave us? Shortly, we'll be interviewing our 3 fabulous guest speakers who will be discussing what strategies and solutions outdoor activity providers, teachers and parents are employing to overcome challenges to create better outcomes for all Victorians, and how the outdoor sectors could be at the forefront in encouraging more outdoor play as a solution to improving the mental health and well-being of people's lives, especially pertinent in today's current social climate. This webinar will be conducted in a Q&A format. So if you've got any questions of your own, please feel free to add them to the chat, which is, if you haven't used Zoom before, is just hovering down the bottom of your screen. You can click on chat and enter a question, or you can raise your hand and we'll try our best, depending on time, to answer a couple of questions at the end of the webinar. I think the best thing is don't worry about the hand because there's so many of us today. Please just pop something in chat and we'll see what we can do. And if we can't answer it online, we'll try to get you later on with an answer. We're also excited to announce that there'll be one lucky attendee who will be chosen from a random prize draw at the end of the webinar. We'll be receiving a hiking gear prize, the value of $150, graciously donated by our sponsor for this event, Outfitted Store. So stick around. Okay. Well, firstly, I'd like to introduce Anne Houghton from Play Australia, a presenter on the value of play and early childhood education consultant. We've also got Adriana Pinder, Professional Learning Coordinator at the Australian Council for Health, Physical Education and Recreation Victoria, known as ACHPER, Vic. And lastly, but not least, Richelle Olsen, Community Engagement Officer at the Australian Association of Bush Adventure Therapy, known as ABAT, and founder of Escape Your Comfort Zone. So Anne Houghton has worked in early childhood education for over 45 years, promoting the importance of play, which has led to her to have opportunities as a presenter both nationally and internationally. Anne began as a kindergarten teacher, continued her career as a consultant and then trainer, and finally lecturing for early childhood undergraduate and postgraduate courses at university. She has also written early childhood resources. One highlight was sharing her teaching experiences in a 2013 publication called Intentional Teaching, Promoting Purposeful Practice in Early Childhood Settings. So just in case anyone wants to write that down, Intentional Teaching, Promoting Purposeful Practice in Early Childhood Settings. Anne is currently a sessional lecturer at RMIT University and also presents for the not-for-profit Play Australia. And there's going to be a link there as well. So thanks to Rob and Andrea and Renee for that. So we'd now like to welcome Anne as our first presenter, and we'll welcome Anne to take over. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Andrew. That was a lovely introduction. Can you all hear me okay?
For sure. Thanks, Anne.
Yes. First of all, I thought I should really define play, because we all tend to know what play looks like when we see it, but defining it can be more difficult. And, you know, usually we say it's spontaneous, a sense of freedom, and it's joyful and fun. And that's what most people will say, that it's fun and you have a lot of joy when you're playing. But it can be very difficult to find ways to define it. There were actually some researchers named Mitchell and Mason that over 30 years kept reframing the way they defined play. They found it was often very difficult. So I don't know what some of you would say if someone asked you to define the word play. I'm sure we would all come up with different sorts of explanations. But today I think we have different play experience, or our children have different play experiences that many of us did as adults. And when I asked that question on what childhood play experiences were in any workshops, most adults say things like they played away from home all day. There was a sense of freedom. They just came home for food for the end of the day and wandered around their neighbourhoods or were out riding bikes for hours. But we know today that that's not what children are tending to have. And, you know, they're much closer to home, or they're playing in their own properties, or if they live in the McMansion, they may not have a backyard. So it is a concern that play is quite different to what we would have all experienced today. So hopefully you can relate to that. So I'll just continue on with play being really important, because it's very important for our brain development and our developmental domain areas of physical, social, emotional, cognitive areas. When we play, we're helping our brains to be wired up with all of those connections and neurons, and new pathways are created in the brain. And if children are deprived of play, they are often at risk of not getting an overall, full potential and reaching their full potential in development. So I can see here the first question is, how important is play for anyone concerned with benefiting their mental health? Well, related to what I've just said about brain development, it is most important. When we're outdoors in particular, we get our endorphins, all the good hormones. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and often children that are under stress for certain different reasons calm down when they go outside. So it's going to benefit the children when they can get outside to play. And, all of that's a great help for mental health. when you think about a crying baby, you know, you hold them in close and soothe them, and the same for a child that might be having a meltdown. You know, you just step outside and often they'll just instantly calm down. So outdoor is really important in that way. But when we think about what play is, some people would say, you know, you play sports, and that's more formal. People know the rules of the game. But I think play is also about playfulness when it's just spontaneous and in the moment. And that's often a quality missing from many adults' lives, where, you know, they don't actually have just playfulness in their life, and where they are being playful in the moment. And it often takes children to help us to be playful. You know, children are able to be playful in spontaneous moments through a sense of freedom. So that's something I think adults really need to think about. How often do you play? How often are you able to just relax and be in the moment? So that's a bit of food for thought in reflecting back. When did you last play? What was it that you did? So I think that helpfully answers some of those questions about play. So what examples of play can you give that adults can engage in? Well, again, I think just being spontaneous and fun. And often it takes a child to help us as adults to be playful, because they're often self-directed, or they initiate the play themselves. They might engage with nature or things in the environment that they get ideas to represent, things that they are learning about in experiences in life. You know, they'll use sticks and things to create campfires or pretend food, etc. So we can just be with children and socialise with them. But when it comes to teenagers, they'll often be involved in sports or hanging around with one another. And that can be difficult just to be playful, because they often have organised type of sports, ball games, etc. But I think it's interesting, while we've had COVID, I've actually observed on some walks seeing teenagers in parkland areas where they've been making bike jumps and things like that, so that, you know, they're being resourceful and using the environment to reorganise it. But that tells us and informs us of some of their needs, maybe in, you know, being hands-on, getting dirty in the environment, and being playful in that, in the way that they're using the environment. Teenagers often today are using technology, so they might play games on their technological devices. So their play is quite two-dimensional. Young children, examples they can have are going to playgrounds. They can use play equipment as well, but when children play outdoors, I think that's when it's the most benefit, when they can initiate the play themselves, when they're resourceful in the way they engage with their natural surroundings and the environment. You know, playing with sticks, stones, rocks, using nature items. I've seen children creating some gunyas, or teepees as you might call them, with, you know, big long branches in parklands during COVID. So, you know, they are able to engage with their environment in that way. But lots of families, I think, during COVID have gone to playgrounds and, you know, really discovered their local areas in that way. So that's been a good thing. So play is anything really that's a way that we're utilising our body in active ways, and where it's social. You know, there's collaboration and communication with others in their play. They're socialising, they're learning about turn taking, they are collaborating and sharing ideas with others that they come up with. So all those developmental domain areas are really, really important. Language is being developed, where they might learn new vocabulary, or when they're communicating in mutual ways with others. But physical development, that's really also important when children are using their bodies. You know, they learn to manage their bodies in space. They are learning about coordination, they're jumping and swinging and being active. And that is a great way to help their physical development. And as I said before, if they miss out on that, they're often at risk of not developing to their whole potential. So maybe we can think more about some of the ways that we help children. Sorry, go on to the next one. I was just going to say we can think about the ways we help children when we do facilitate some of their play and just give them a sense of freedom to initiate what they want to do. We don't always have to hover over children, but be near and close by. Children also need some risk-taking in their play because that's how they learn. They learn from their mistakes and try again. And dispositions are another really important aspect of what happens when children are learning to play and being involved in play. And dispositions are those attitudes towards learning. Words such as confidence, being independent, caretaking, being cautious and hesitant. They might also learn about determination and persistence when they go to playgrounds and revisit spaces and try again to achieve things and master skills. So dispositions are really important for lifelong learning. And if I ask parents what they want their children to develop for a good life, they'll often name those things like risk-taking and resilience and being confident and independent learners. So those dispositions actually develop through play opportunities as well that happen in all those social, cognitive, emotional, language skill areas. So we can go to the next question. Hopefully I've covered that one. What changes have you noticed in how people have adapted their outdoor play due to lockdowns and restrictions due to COVID-19? As I said before, when I've been out on some nature walks, I've really discovered new spaces in my own area. And I think that's one thing that's been really great. People have actually been getting outdoors and as whole families as well. And that does give people an opportunity to discover new environmental areas in their local geographical areas. So I've noticed things, as I mentioned before, teenagers with shovels in a local bush area that were redesigning the environment for some bike riding and making their own mounds and things like that. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing. I know some people that were complaining, saying, look what they're doing, we need to ring the ranger. But when you think about children being locked up for remote learning, maybe locked up is a strong word, but when they've been involved in remote learning, it's been difficult. They've been away from outdoors. So, getting out and about was one way they could perhaps be grouped together again in socialisation. But when you observe what children do and teenagers, it does inform us in their needs. They must have needed to be engaging with their environment and connecting with the natural environment to make their bike mounds and things. So I see that also as an opportunity to work with children in perhaps helping them to be environmental citizens in the way they might caretake the environment as well. I've also noticed lots of people getting out and about for picnics, which again makes me think about, is there enough seating sometimes in spaces and places, because they might have to take their picnic rugs. There's been other things like Spoonsville. Anyone seen Spoonsville, where, on your local walks, people have had their wooden spoons out with decorations and collecting a Spoonsville community outside in their gardens or on the nature strip. There's also been teddy bears and hanging from windows or on fences. So, that's people being playful. Chalk drawings for hopscotch on footpaths, etc. So, I've noticed some of those things, and maybe you have too. And maybe in your own local areas, people have done different things. But certainly that's what I've observed in my own areas. And it does give you a smile or a bit of joy when you're out on a walk. Actually, last week I was on a walk and I saw a big stuffed koala that was in a fork of a tree out in the nature strip. So, it just brings a smile to your face to see the things people have been doing. So what else around COVID? Of course, we've had the mask wearing, haven't we? And in playgrounds, we've had to have QR codes, so people have had to adapt in that way and check in when they're in some of those spaces. I think also when we've been out of lockdown, lots of people have headed to those sorts of spaces with their children. And perhaps if they hadn't experienced COVID, they would have been just staying at home. So I think a lot of families have really discovered more of a variety of playgrounds in their local areas. So maybe next question.
And I've got one for you here, Anne.
Yeah.
It's Andrew. So one of the participants asked a question. Potentially, you might be able to help us out there with it. Otherwise, we might pass it on to one of the other contributors. But how do you incorporate play if you're an adult without kids in your life?
Well, that is a good question. As I said earlier, I think play is about having a sense of spontaneity and freedom and just being in the moment. So, I think you need to create opportunities for that. And maybe it's hard for some people, depending on their childhood or how they've grown up. But you can perhaps be playful when you're just socialising with other people that might instigate something or a game. They play for a bit of sense of humour, but being playful is perhaps a disposition as well. Some people have more of a sense of humour than others. So it might be something some people do need to work on, but I think just being able to relax and being in the moment, you can be playful in the way that you might just go on a walk and sit and ponder and reflect and giving your body a chance just to relax sometimes is the way, you start to be playful in the moment, because it just comes at some stage. You've got to perhaps give yourself a chance to relax and see what happens when you have an idea come to mind, and that sense of freedom might bring it on. But someone else might like to contribute to that, because I think I've never not been playful, and I've grown up with a family that shortchanged sheets and things like that to play jokes on one another. So if you haven't had that in your life, I can see it would be much harder. Anyone else got some ideas there?
Yeah, and you go, Robin.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that Mel Turnbull has contributed a few things in text to the original question, and just said, I find encouraging curiosity, opening senses, encouraging folks to wander and not need to answer questions can open up that playful curiosity for adults, and also encouraging folks to remember what they loved doing as a child passions. That's really good contribution there. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Yes. And the sense of wonder is, so important to have that. And I think you can often get that when you do get outside, just being curious. And that's another part that happens for children. Children have an innate sense of play because they are innately curious and they investigate. And we often call young children little scientists because they do experiment and investigate things. And if you've ever walked down the street with a child holding their hand, you're often stopping every minute because they're picking up the minutest little pebble or a flower petal or something, and they do engage with their natural surroundings, and that is what's often missing from an adult's life. So being playful might be that sense of wonder and stopping and having a sense of awe about things.
Fantastic, Anne. Well, thank you very much for being with us today. We very much appreciate it, and it was great to reflect on childhood experiences of playing outdoors and consider how this impacts on our adult life. I'm sure we'll have a lot to take away from your words. So thanks, Anne. Appreciate you being there.
Thank you.
Lovely. Now on to our next guest speaker, Adriana from ACHPER Victoria. who will connect further with the play and how that impacts on the next generation of students through the application of outdoor education within schools. Adriana's experience is in health and physical education with 10 years experience teaching and leading foundation to year 12 programs. She's worked with the peak body for health and PE and outdoor education, ACHPER Victoria, for the last 4 years as a professional learning coordinator. Her work in this space is focused on foundation to year 10 health and PE professional development and resources for teachers across Victoria with a keen interest in VCE. Adriana has recently taken on a new role within the organisation as technical lead of the Active Schools Expert Support Service, leading a team of 12 health and PE and extracurricular experts to support Victorian government schools and teachers to develop sustainable physical activity initiatives for students in the school and local community. So we're also going to pop a link in there as well. So thanks for that. Everyone have a look at that. So welcome, Adriana, and we look forward to hearing from you, and I'll ask a couple of questions along the way.
No worries. Thank you. It's great to be here.
So what improvements could be made to the design of our current education models, Adriana, in regard to outdoor learning for better health outcomes for kids?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple of key areas that I would highlight. First of all is more movement opportunities for our students across the school day rather than being locked into certain times. Definitely broader activity offerings. What else have we got? Upskilling of staff and students. So definitely thinking around giving them the opportunity to learn more about each space and different types of opportunities for movement in the outdoors. And also developing a stronger culture of movement within school communities as well. So just to elaborate on those a little bit further, I guess from our organisational perspective and most of the teachers that we work with, we know that active kids are happy, healthy and resilient kids and active learners. And so any opportunity that we can provide our students to move and get outdoors is going to help obviously improve a lot of their overall well-being, but really, hone in on their mental and emotional well-being in particular. We do spend a lot of time focusing on the physical aspects of well-being, but there's so many benefits from that mental health perspective that come from movement. And we've certainly seen that in the last couple of years where the students, when they do have that reduced opportunity to move, they are experiencing, more challenges with mental health. We've seen a real spike in what's occurred mental health wise because students haven't been getting outdoors and involved in the regular activity that they are normally. So certainly encouraging when students return to school, more opportunities to move during the day. So that are things like brain breaks, outdoor learning lessons. So rather than just being within the classroom, can we get outdoors? And considering those broader opportunities for movement in the outdoors, such as rather than just our camp perspective, that we probably tend to see as what is the traditional outdoor education in schools, but looking at recreational opportunities, looking at physical activity. We know that our students, particularly into adolescence, don't always want to be in competitive sport, but they want an opportunity. So different recreational opportunities, different outdoor activities are what our students are starting to gravitate to more. So making sure that we're including that in our physical education programs, that we're providing those links in the health ed side so students can connect to them, but also then showing how students can link their experiences in the outdoors to their other spaces. So really making that cross-curricular approach where we can, I had brought up before, upskilling of staff, again, really important one. We're finding at the moment from a tertiary perspective, there are reduced opportunities for our teachers to learn about outdoor education. So we really do want to make sure that there are opportunities being fed through there to reinforce the benefits of outdoor education and outdoor learning, and also providing professional development opportunities for teachers to feel more confident. One of the things that we know at the moment is that the teachers who are not health and PE trained, so a lot of our classroom teachers in primary and other subject areas in secondary, because they don't have that knowledge and confidence around the space, they're reluctant to introduce it to our students. So giving them the opportunity to feel more confident will make them more likely use those activities with their students. And a big part of my work within the Active Schools Initiative is how we can develop a stronger culture of movement within a whole school community. So that means getting all our staff on board, linking into the community and knowing what's around us so we can link those opportunities for our students and say what we're doing in PE or in any aspect of school from an outdoor education or learning perspective can be transferred outside of the school walls. So we want to give them those experiences and the understanding of how to continue it for the rest of their lives. If we can hopefully strengthen that culture in the school setting and make it the norm that we do go outdoors, that we do be active on a regular basis, on a daily basis, we're likely to see a greater number of students continue that after they leave school. And, you know, continue to see those benefits. So school's a fantastic place to bring in movement for students in the outdoors, but we do need to support them to set, I guess, that culture and their motivation to want to move. So there's probably the 4 key things around more movement opportunities across the day, broader offerings, upskilling staff, and really focusing in on that culture in the school setting. Oh, Andrew, I think you're muted.
Yeah, thanks,
okay.
Adriana. Happy to be someone today. Yay. Sorry. So how are programs being adapted to cater to the difficulties of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, there's been some amazing stories that I've had from teachers around what they've been able to do the last 18 months. Just because students haven't been in the school setting does not mean that outdoor education has stopped completely. We've actually seen a lot of really creative ideas from teachers to continue their outdoor education and outdoor learning experiences where possible. A couple of things that we found, I guess, in the initial phase, many teachers, and particularly our health and PE teachers, were really just encouraging teachers to spend more time being active, increasing ideas and opportunities for recreational activity. Because we knew they were spending so much time sedentary and in front of a computer. So things like much more creative lessons from our PE teachers to make sure that physical activity was embedded daily, but encouraging them to actually connect with their local environment and find opportunities for activity in their local community. So we did see, and I know many of us have sort of seen this in the last 18 months, but that strong link back to, you know, the family activities, playing with siblings outdoors, cycling, getting to know your walking tracks, all of those sorts of things have really been encouraged. But our teachers have been able to say, this is going to be part of your PE time, how it's important that you're, you know, engaging in those activities regularly. And can you find activities that you haven't done for a while or you haven't participated in before that you have a strong connection with? So starting to reignite some of those play experiences, maybe introducing them to play experiences that they haven't experienced just because they're in a world of technology and competitive sport. We're starting to see those benefits come through. We've also seen a number of things like virtual camps. So it's been a real shame that some of our students, you know, in their last year of primary school have missed their final primary camp. Or their one and only camp in some settings. And our teachers worked extremely hard to come up with virtual camp activities. So things like, you know, you need to set up another bed somewhere in the house or in your backyard to sleep for the night, or we're sending you a recipe or a set of ingredients so that you're going to cook your own lunch today. Or we need you to go for a walk or an outdoor activity and tell us, you know, 5 things that you observed in the natural environment, even to the extent of setting a roster for cleanup after dinner in the family household. So really trying to immerse them in that camp experience and all those different things they would do, but in their home setting. And then I've seen this a lot more with our VCE students, but many teachers were able to continue the outdoor experiences, which are a required part of the course, either within their school grounds, in the local environments that they could walk to, or using virtual experiences. So there's been a fantastic number of YouTube videos. Google Expeditions does a really great job of it. A lot of national parks and different organisations have been able to provide web experience to, I guess, replace the outdoor experience. It isn't quite the same, but it helps them to still connect and show that it is still there. I think we're all pretty familiar of seeing the penguin parade on YouTube that came up, and that was certainly a really great way to showcase that our environment's still out there. There are still ways you can connect with it, even if you can't get there. The teachers were fantastic in being able to really work creatively to ensure that how students experience the outdoors didn't just stop. And I'm certainly sure that a number of those things will continue moving forward, which is great.
Fantastic, Adriana. Thank you. And what do you think, and you anticipate could be difficult for returning students from the 3-month lockdown, particularly around outdoor learning?
Yeah, so there's certainly a lot of anxiety for students needing to catch up on what they missed out academically. And I think we're also seeing many teachers and parents really wanting that push around literacy and numeracy, but also not wanting to overwhelm them. Certainly returning to school poses that issue of being slammed with all of the academic literacy and numeracy type work for our older students, trying to catch up on, valuable face-to-face time that they've missed in those subject areas. But we know that students really need that opportunity for movement. One, because it's obviously going to benefit their physical health and well-being, but two, mentally it can be quite overwhelming for them to go back into that school setting, particularly with a new COVID environment. A lot of students are having to go back to wearing masks in the classroom. They're going to be operating differently, and that can cause a real big sense of anxiety for our students. So returning to school, it's certainly going to be really important that we have regular movement breaks for our students to help with that. Certainly want to see, and for our older students as well, I guess, those regular breaks are going to help clear their mind, feel more refreshed, be better prepared for the learning that they're going back into. We certainly also want to encourage activities like outdoor learning. So the outdoor learning toolkits that we've collaborated with you on and a number of other subject associations, that's there to give our teachers some activity ideas, but also help with that confidence of getting outside of the four walls of the classroom. And still covering off on the learning tasks and outcomes that they need to meet. Also certainly want to see where there are opportunities maybe for those cross-curricular links. So you might be doing something around a different subject area, be it English, geography, etc. But how can then you get outdoors to help make that environment a little bit safer because you're having the time in the open air? And also just looking at some of those benefits that we've been able to pick up on in the last 18 months while we've been indoors. So definitely a lot of anxiety to returning to school, but I think there's some, using outdoor learning is a really great approach to help alleviate some of that and provide a few more positive experiences to improve mental health and wellbeing.
Thanks, Adriana. And they've Robin has just popped into the chat too, the links to the outdoor learning toolkits that you mentioned that we've all been working on together. So thanks, Adriana, very much. Really great insight there around difficulties of lockdown. And, I think we really appreciate how this emphasises how important it is to get all kids outdoors as much as they possibly can during their school days, and come up with some innovative ideas. So thank you very much, Adriana, for being there today.
No worries.
Yeah, if you can hang around right at the end, we'll see if there's a couple more queries then that we can get to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, it's inclusivity that brings us to our next guest speaker, Richelle, who will talk about how we can extend this beyond students to adults and all who seek relief in the outdoors. So Richelle joined Outdoors Victoria in August as a Community Engagement Officer for the Australian Association of Bush Adventure Therapy. Richelle is also the founder of Escaping a Comfort Zone, body positive adventures for women with the approach the outdoors don't care about your size, your pace or your fitness, and neither do we. She has a passion for changing the story for what an adventurous person looks like and increasing representation in adventure for people in bigger bodies and generally those who have historically been left out of the adventure narrative. She has a passion for the transformative impact the outdoors can have on people and the importance of health professionals to have the ability to prescribe the benefits of the outdoors as therapy. So there's going to be a link in chat to that as well. And so, Richelle, I welcome you and look forward to quizzing you. So welcome, Richelle.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for this opportunity. I just wanted to, I guess, share from just a little anecdote from my perspective, what Anne was talking about in terms of play. So I think a lot of us would relate to this. Life has been caught up with me, been super busy, been moving house, lots going on. And I felt really within four walls. And I know that the solution to that is getting out there and playing. And my version of play is mountain biking. But no, I don't have time. I finally made time yesterday morning. Couldn't convince any of my mates to come with me. And I went, you know what? I'm just going to go by myself. And I had such an absolute ball, ducking between trees, listening to the birds, just being in the moment. Like, phone was off, everything was off, just in the moment, ducking between the trees, a bit of downhill, a bit of woohooing. It's just like, yes, and you feel your heart beating hard, and you just feel like that sense of joy that just comes from being in it and doing something fun. And it's just like, I'm thinking to myself, why have I left it so long? Like, so then for the rest of the day, I was just buzzing. I was really productive. I got lots of work done. It was really amazing. But yeah, as I've got this theory that as adults, we certainly do not play enough. We get kind of wrapped up in our lives. We might get wrapped up in children, in responsibilities, and it's really easy to kind of put our own play aside. The other thing about play with that, with what was spoken about earlier, is I think there's also a little bit of, if we haven't played for a long time and we're a little bit uncomfortable with it and we're a little bit concerned of what others will think, when we first start playing, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And so it's just this battle of getting past that initial discomfort. And once you get past that initial discomfort, where I don't care what others think, I'm just going to woohoo, or I might swing on the swings or whatever. There's a real there's real relief and result in that. And I mean, I had so much fun playing yesterday on the mountain bike that then I took my partner's kids out kite flying at sunset last night, and we all played, and it was great.
Wicked, Richelle. Look, thanks very much. And it sounds like you've probably answered a little bit of the first question there. Are there any other things that you'd like to touch on around solutions?
Yeah. So in terms of difficulty for adults, so I run Escaping Comfort Zone, which, as Andrew said, is body positive hiking. And one of the things, so we have our own app. So we've moved off Facebook and we've got our own community app. And that came at a really great time over COVID, where people can just basically go in and share their experiences and share plans and share virtual camps and so on and so forth. And it's really fun. But one of the things that as we're starting to open up, people are talking about the fact that, and I kind of liken it to a caged animal, in the fact that you open up the cage and they kind of stick their head out and go, no, not ready yet. No, not ready yet. Or they'll come out and they'll do an activity and go, oh no, that's too full on. Like, there's a lot of anxiety there. And it's not necessarily anxiety about catching COVID. It's anxiety about being around people and remembering how to socialize, remembering how to act around people, remembering what it feels like to be part of a group and close to other people. So that's one of the big things a lot of our members have been saying. And in terms of solutions to that, so it's like, what we're basically saying is, so we have a crew of about 30 leaders, and the leaders also themselves are feeling that social anxiety. And so basically we've said to leaders, our usual groups are about a group size of about 12. We've said to leaders, even if you want to take groups of 2 or 3, it doesn't matter. Like, if you want to start small, that's okay. And that then helps those other people who are coming on, oh, it's only going to be a group of 4. So, okay, that's a lot less intimidating than going out with a group of 12. So there's the small group stuff. And it's also, it's nurturing those people who, as I said, have forgotten how to socialize or have forgotten how to be in the outdoors. But also there's a whole load of people, brand new people, that after COVID, they're just like, I've never been an outdoorsy person before, but I want to become this. But how? How do I do it? And one of the things that just introducing people from the ground up there and not making assumptions about, okay, everyone knows how to be out in the bush, or everyone knows how to go to Listerfield or Westerfolds Park, and just kind of strip it back and go, right, so how do we help these people who, like as Anne and Adriana were talking about, kids who may have been those children who weren't shown how to be outdoors, who weren't shown what the benefits were and how to be comfortable there. So it's just been really cognizant of the fact that people can be really starting from literal scratch.
Beautiful, Richelle. Thank you very much. How can outdoor activity providers lead the way in enabling people to access the types of play they need? You've obviously mentioned what escaping your comfort zone is doing, but maybe you've got some other examples for us. Yeah,
so in terms of accessing the types of play they need, I touched on it before, and I've often talked about this, is that making sure that we appeal to the beginner. So an experience I had many, many years ago was when I got into triathlon. I went along to an 8-week beginners course, and I rocked up to my first session and they said, right, so will you be doing the long one or the short run or the long run? And I said, oh, just the short one. And they said, oh, okay. So we're doing, it'll be between 6 and 8 Ks today. And I'm like, I'm lucky to be able to run to the corner. And then with the ride, it was like, okay, we'll be doing an 80K ride this weekend. What? Like, I'll do 10 and then I'll die. And then same with the swim. And there was an assumption made. The question was never asked, what level are you at? There was an assumption made that beginners already had a level of fitness or ability or capability. I just thought I knew how to swim, ride and run, that was enough. And there was never that question asked about what level of beginner you are. And a lot of organisations, both sport and recreation, the leaders and the organisers, because they've lived and breathed that activity all their lives quite frequently, they look at it from their own perspective. And particularly if you've been experiencing it, you forget that somebody literally doesn't know how to navigate. If I put it into perspective for hiking, like say there's a little rock garden that you just have to navigate your way over. Like some people literally don't know how to move their bodies to do that. So it's a matter of like pulling back what a beginner is and asking people the question, because it's really easy to put people off. So if someone, like I was lucky with that triathlon, there was actually 2 or 3 other people who are in the same boat as me. And we got given our own coach and we got nurtured from the ground up. But it could vary. Someone a little less confident or resilient could have got there and gone, oh, well, triathlon's clearly not for me, so I will go. So it's a matter of just really recognizing where people are coming in from and nurturing that, as opposed to making assumptions. And the other thing is is making it clear what this program is and who exactly it's for and what abilities. Like, for instance, our program, we say if you can walk for half an hour around the streets, your local streets, you can comfortably come on one of our beginner hikes with us. So that's really important, just recognizing what people need and how beginner is quite frequently very, very beginner.
Richelle, that's such a great call out. Thank you very much for that. And then how do we approach nature as a holistic solution for human health? You're obviously working with the Australian Association of Bush Adventure Therapy, and you're very welcome to plug that symposium soon. But yeah, how do we approach nature as a holistic solution for human health?
I love this question. This is great. So if you think about the scenario, whereby somebody may go to the doctor and they get diagnosed with diabetes, and they may get told by the doctor, okay, you need to go on a diet and you need to go join a gym. For somebody who has never been on a diet before, who has never been to a gym before, those two are really daunting prospects. And it's really non-specific as well. What if a doctor was able to go, okay, right, I'm going to put you onto a diabetes educator, but here's a whole raft of other things that you might feel more comfortable doing rather than going to a gym. So there's a local bushwalking club that do short half-hour walks, There's a local paddling club that have a beginner's day every Sunday. There's a local park run, and that's a really great example. There's a local park run where you can walk every Saturday morning. No one's left behind because there's always tail walkers, or you can go and volunteer and be part of it until you're comfortable with participating. I think the outdoors it's a tool in a toolkit for health. So if we look at health, there's obviously there's mental health, there's emotional, physical, and spiritual, but there's in amongst that, there's that sense of belonging and connectedness. And that's a really crucial, important thing when it comes to health. It's not just about treating the body. If somebody can feel like they belong somewhere and they feel connected to the people around them, that then adds benefits to physical and mental health, as well as on top of the mental and emotional well-being of being out in the bush. I mentioned Parkrun before. Parkrun is for those who don't know about it, it's a free timed 5K run, walk, whatever you like, every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. across the world. There's over 6 million participants, and basically it's been going 10 years plus. Anyway, so what Parkrun have done is there is now over 10% of GPs in the UK and Ireland that will now prescribe Parkrun and explain what Parkrun's about and prescribe Parkrun to patients who may have health issues, but also may be missing out on that community connectedness. A lot of the research that's gone into it has basically said that that a lot of people will attend doctors not because they need to, but because that's their sense of connection, and that's the only person that they feel that they can talk to and be comfortable around. So it's amazing. They're doing a lot of great things. They're looking at doing something similar in Australia. And there's a whole raft of health providers and health organisations that are doing trials for nature prescriptions and social prescriptions within Australia as well, which I am 100% on board with.
Fantastic, Richelle. Thank you very, very much.
Andrew, I forgot my plug.
No, go for it. That's what I was going to ask for now.
So as part of my role at ABAT, where we have a 2-day symposium next week, which is the National Outdoor Health Symposium, which basically brings together over 30 speakers talking about the benefits and a whole lot of research and a whole lot of practice examples for the inclusion of the outdoors in health, specifically mental health, but also other health as well. So there's equine therapy, there's nature prescriptions, there is a whole lot of bush adventure therapy, all speakers from all over the world. So jump on and join that. I'll get Robin to add the link in for that. It's really accessible if you can't make the whole 2 days. It's all online. If you can't make the whole 2 days, you can access all of the speakers for a year afterwards. So that's my baby, and I'm so excited about that. It's very rare to have a job that you can be so passionate about as well. So
wonderful, Richelle. Thank you, and thanks, Robin, as well. Really appreciate having Anne, Adriana, and Richelle here. I think Robin's going to be flat out popping some links in. There's some good things going on in chat at the moment. What we might do is just, if you've got any further queries, pop them in, and then I'll probably refer across to either Renee or Robin from OV in a minute to direct me to a couple of quick questions. But just wanted to ask Anne and then through to Adriana and lastly to Richelle, just one final question. How could outdoor activity providers and teachers lead the way to improve community resilience to be prepared for, any future type disasters like COVID, where we've had a whole lot of isolation? Just wondering, Anne, if you might want to start to approach that one.
Yes, certainly. I think it's really important in teacher education for teachers to understand that learning can be integrated in the outdoors for all the STEAM areas, as in science, technology, environment, engineering, maths, etc., and arts, because we can use our outdoor natural environments for integrating learning. For example, I didn't get to mention before, but in early childhood education, bush and beach kindergartens have been on the rise over a number of years, not just due to COVID, but they are now seen as an amazing opportunity for children to learn in their outdoor environments. So usually the teachers don't need to take any resources or materials or equipment. One teacher I know of just uses his app on his phone. That's the Museum Victoria app, that where if a child finds a bug or an insect in the outdoors, they can look it up on the app and identify it. So, children are able to engage with nature and they're learning about the habitats. I know of a centre where the children were rolling down a grassy slope and began to cause erosion. So the local ranger stepped in and helped the children to revegetate that particular grassy slope. It was in Darebin Parklands. So, rich learning opportunities in that way that relate to science and maths and what they're learning, and watching the growth cycle of the grass and the seeds. Children might put a tree branch across the fork of a tree and learn about gravity and, make a seesaw, or they're learning about whether limbs are strong enough to climb, etc. And, such rich learning, using stones and rocks as items instead of counters for maths. There's so many rich opportunities where I think pre-service teachers also need to learn about how they can integrate learning, literacy, etc., numeracy, all in the outdoors, as well as all the physical aspects for children. So that's important. And, that does take a little bit of learning from perhaps universities in how they use and utilise the outdoors as well, and other organisations that might cater for teacher education. But I think also councils and other areas need to be far more aware of how to make accessible areas that are inclusive for children with additional needs as well, for multi-age levels. A mum that might go to the local playground and she's got a baby in a pram, or a toddler and a 5 or 6 year old that wants to be on particular equipment. How do these spaces cater for families' needs and different multi-age groups, or having a basketball ring nearby for the teenagers, but the younger children can play as well. So there's some of the things that I've been thinking about. And seats, somewhere to seat. My dad is 96 years old. My mother-in-law's 99. How do we go out and make spaces for whole families to still get the aged out in the community and being able to watch their great-grandchildren? So these things are all important for the future, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. I've seen a few more seats around the place from our local council. So yeah, totally agree with that. Richelle, anything to add on top of that? And then I'll get to Adriana first. Sorry about that. We're going. Oh no, we're right. So thanks, Richelle. Go for it.
Richelle, go.
Pass it up.
I guess the only thing I would add to it is making sure that there is, I guess, a hybrid way of connection with people, and normalize that. So when I say a hybrid way, like the virtual stuff in combination with the in-person stuff, and making that normalized throughout a non-lockdown period, so that it's really easy to pick up during that lockdown period. We have had, I spoke about our app, but even for the last 5 years, we've had Facebook groups which combine a lot of, which basically build people up to get the confidence to come along to something first, but creating that level of community online so that it's a two-pronged approach. That's really important for then keeping connections for when people are isolated. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Richelle. Everyone else, the symposium's in the chat now as well. So thanks for that, to promote that ABAT event for outdoor healthcare. Adriana, anything else to add to how could outdoor activity providers and teachers lead the way to improve community resilience to overcome future disasters like COVID-19?
Yeah, look, we are so incredibly proud of our health PE and outdoor ed teachers, of what they've been able to accomplish. The resilience and adaptability that they have shown is certainly something that we can all learn from. They've successfully flipped what has been a predominantly practical hands-on subject to run through virtual experiences, which in the beginning, many individuals were certainly thinking this isn't possible, and very quickly they showed us that it was. So I, certainly would love to see, how those learnings that we've had from our teachers in the last 18 months can be expanded into other areas, to really show that just because we can't be face-to-face doesn't mean that our opportunities to be in the outdoors and be physically active can't continue. Just the way that they were able to go, right, we can't do this in the normal setting. Let's really think outside the box and see how we can still achieve those goals that we had set ourselves. I certainly think that that's, a fantastic model to help people learn ways that we can, tackle challenges in the future.
Fantastic, Adriana. No, thank you. So there's also now a link, because Anne touched on it too, that as well as Play Australia, which you can look up, Play Australia, there's also some really good tools on the professional kindergarten teachers organisation, not-for-profit, called Early Childhood Outdoor Learning Network. So there's a link in there to Econ, and they've got a map on there of where all the nature kindergartens are, which is pretty handy, and we'll have some other resources there as well, and some help to connect with them as well as Play Australia. But I was going to probably just go across to either Renee or Robin just to see if there's particular questions in chat that we might want to get to before we polish off and finish up.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, look, there's quite a lot of chat, and there are a few questions. I'm just mindful that we're 5 minutes over. So there's just one that, the other thing is that we are recording and we do have the chat. So if there are any questions that people would like us to follow up on, we can, kind of go offline later. There was just one from Melanie Davey that I thought might be worth just posing to whoever would like to answer that. And that's, how important do you think it is that mental health training for guides or instructors is normalised and encouraged industry-wide? And
Mm-hmm.
I might get Richelle to have a crack with the ABAT piece, and then maybe we can complement that with Adriana and Anne. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and 100%, like the value of having mental health first, training for outdoor educators is, in my opinion, crucial. You get, when you're in the outdoor environment, you have such a a vulnerability of participants quite frequently, particularly young people. And a lot of times they will open up to you walking alongside you because they're not looking at you in the eye. It's much easier to open up. And having the tools to be able to respond to them is crucial. From an ABAT perspective, I know there's quite a few outdoor educators that do the mental health first aid course. And I think there's some providers that actually will are specifically aimed at outdoor educators, but that's something that from an ABAT perspective, we'd be looking at in terms of training going forward. It's certainly on our radar. How quickly it will happen, I'm not sure, but there is certainly a lot of value to be had there for sure.
Can I add?
Sorry.
Can I add?
Oh, Anne.
Yeah, can I add to that in relation to, I think it's really important for educators to be trauma informed and be so aware. Now there are courses around that. Children that have been through trauma, and that just prevents them from even sometimes getting out of their bedroom, let alone getting to school. I know a family member that's been involved in that as a social worker, and they are using, it's called MacKillop Pals through the Catholic education. They're using MacKillop Paw Pals therapy dogs. And the dogs are making a tremendous difference to form relationships with children that can help them actually get to school, having a relationship with an animal that they might relate to. So, these are some other aspects that are so important for part of teacher education, I think, to be trauma informed and understand what has happened for some children that prevent them from getting to school or opportunities for learning.
Yeah, thanks, Anne, very much. Adriana, I'm sure you got a few thoughts on this too.
Yeah, very, very quickly. Richelle and Anne, you've certainly hit on a couple of really key points, and I certainly agree with what you had shared. We've seen in the education sector a huge spike in the number of mental health issues that our students are experiencing, and quite often those experiences in the outdoors are really challenging and confronting for them. We do try and set them up by providing them with a certain level of risk, a safe level of risk. But even teachers at this point, I think that's a fantastic question to pose more to the education sector broadly, because a lot of our teachers don't necessarily have the training that is keeping up with the level of mental health issues we're experiencing with our students. So certainly for all teachers, I'd be strongly encouraging that mental health first aid training to happen, to be involved in. But from an outdoor educator's perspective, yes, because they're taking our students out into a setting where they are uncomfortable, where we are challenging them, and quite often where they see those challenges on top of mental health issues can just really hold back their engagement and their growth. And as soon as we see students feel supported and they're understood, with whatever mental health concerns they're experiencing, and they can tackle those challenges in a safe and supported environment, they really thrive. So it makes sense to definitely do that.
Wonderful, Adriana. Thank you very much for that. And Richelle and Anne. There is also, as well as heading onto the ABAT website, and I'm sure there's going to be more to come in this space, Richelle, over the next couple of weeks and months, with you now being a paid professional with ABAT. There's also a course with St John Ambulance Victoria that they run an emergency mental health first aid course over 2 afternoons that I was lucky enough to be able to do.
My bag, right? What? I'm just looking at the badges that came off my shirt, right? What about it? This is a level 4 badge. Okay. I have to get 3 of these. And they were saying I only completed 1.
If we can just have Jody Thompson, if you just want to mute, that'd be wonderful.
Also, can I have this?
Thanks, Jody Thompson. Lovely. So I think that we may revert back to Robin very quickly just to see if there's anything else, but I think we better get going, and we'll look forward to catching up with you like in a couple of weeks' time. So, Robin, anything else at this stage? Otherwise, we might wrap it up today.
No, except I think Renee might be actually just drawing a quick prize, we've got the prize. So I'll hand over to Renee.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. Sorry, I'm sure you've all been waiting for the drawing of the prize. So what I'll do is I'll just stop sharing the screen very quickly. Okay. All right, so very fancy here. We've got all attendees. However, if the person that we draw out isn't here, we'll probably have to redraw. Hopefully not. All right, let us start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Trish McGree. Is Trish McGree here? Yay, I don't believe the Trish is here. That's all right. We might have to redraw. All right. Let's see if I can do this as quick as possible.
We might, if the next person isn't here, Renee, we might do it offline and let the person know.
All right, fingers crossed. Nick McConaughey. Don't believe they're here either. That's all right. What we'll do is we'll draw it offline. And
Nick is actually here.
Nick, yes, Nick, well done.
Congratulations.
I'm not Nick, but Nick is actually in the background listening. So there's 3 of us, Fee, Nick and I, all listening and paying attention.
Oh, Nick, well done. Please pass on our best regards.
Will do.
So Nick will be in contact and you are the lucky winner of the voucher for Houghton here.
No worries. Don't take offence if I don't pass it on to Nick.
That's all right. Okay, wonderful. That's excellent. Don't forget as well, we've got our next digital series, Inclusion and Diversity in the Outdoors. I'll just find where that is.
On December the 2nd, we're looking at, Renee. That's
right. So December the 2nd, we have Inclusion and Diversity in the Outdoors. Same time, 10:30 till 11:30, and we really hope you'll all be there because we'll have some more amazing presenters presenting about inclusion and diversity.
Thanks, Renee, and thanks very much, Anne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana, and thank you, Richelle. Much appreciated today.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe travels, everyone, as you get out and about.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye.